I'm Emma, and my world shattered in one night. A dive bar in a sketchy part of town. Cheap drinks, laughter, and my boyfriend Lucas by my side. My best friend Sarah joins us, uninvited, with a friend. We're drunk, stranded, no cabs in sight. Sarah offers her place to crash. I trust them both, big mistake. We share a bed, an awkward setup. I pass out exhausted. I wake to Lucas's confession. He and Sarah touched each other while I slept inches away. My best friend. My boyfriend. Betrayal in the dark. They claim it's no big deal, citing a past threesome I hated. I'm furious, heartbroken. They crossed every line. I confront Sarah. She deflects blame. Lucas begs for forgiveness, but I'm done. I cut them out, determined to rebuild. A new city, new dreams, and a chance to heal. But can I ever trust again? Stay with us to find out how this story ends, and don't forget to like and subscribe. I never thought a night out with my boyfriend would unravel everything I thought I knew about trust, loyalty, and the people closest to me. My name's Emma, I'm 20, and this is the story of how a single night in an unfamiliar city turned my world upside down. It's a story I still replay in my head, trying to make sense of the betrayal that happened while I was asleep, just inches away. But what came after that night, the weeks, months, and moments of rebuilding myself, taught me more about who I am than I ever expected. It all started when my boyfriend, Lucas, 22, suggested we hit up a dive bar in a part of the city we'd never been to before. We were both broke. Lucas had just helped me cover the last bit of cash I needed to buy a new laptop I'd been eyeing for months. Money was tight, so we decided to leave our phones at home to avoid any trouble in a sketchy neighborhood. Instead, we carried an old flip phone, just in case. The bar was in a gritty district, far from our usual haunts, and since we were taking the subway, I called my friend Sarah for directions. Sarah knew the area well and had raved about this bar before, calling it authentic and cheap. When I called Sarah, she got the wrong idea and thought we were inviting her along. Before I could clarify, she said she'd meet us there with a friend of hers, Nate. I didn't mind too much. Sarah's fun, and we'd been close since high school. Plus, it'd be nice to have someone familiar in a place we didn't know. Lucas and I shrugged it off and headed out, excited for a night of cheap drinks and new vibes. We got to the bar around 9 p.m., and it was exactly as Sarah described, dimly lit, with sticky floors, a jukebox blaring old rock, and a crowd that looked like they'd seen it all. Sarah and Nate were already there, waving us over to a booth. The night flew by in a blur of laughter, shots, and stories. Lucas and I were having a blast, and Sarah was in her element, charming everyone with her quick wit. Nate was quieter but seemed cool, and we all got along. By 1 a.m., we were all pretty drunk, the kind of drunk where the room spins just enough to make you giggle at nothing. Sarah and Nate decided to head out, and that's when we realized we had a problem. We needed to get home, but our flip phone wasn't exactly Uber-friendly, and the bar's Wi-Fi was non-existent. We tried a few apps on Sarah's phone, but there were no cabs available. Apparently, it was a busy night in the city. Sarah, ever the problem solver, suggested we crash at her apartment nearby until morning. "It's just a 20-minute bus ride," she said. "You can sleep it off, and we'll figure out a ride at dawn." With no better options, Lucas and I agreed. Now, a bit of context. Lucas, Sarah, and I have a complicated history. Last summer, we'd experimented with a threesome. It was something we'd all talked about, half joking, until one night we actually went through with it. I thought it'd be exciting, but it left me feeling sidelined and insecure. Lucas and Sarah seemed way more into each other than into me, and afterward, I told Lucas I never wanted to do it again. He agreed, and we promised to keep things strictly platonic with Sarah moving forward. On the bus to her place, I reminded Lucas of this. "Please don't make it weird," I said, my voice low so Sarah, sitting a few rows ahead, wouldn't hear. "No repeats of last summer, okay? We're done with that." Lucas nodded, squeezing my hand. "Yeah, I get it. Just a normal night." When we got to Sarah's apartment, I was exhausted. The alcohol hit me hard, and I barely remember kicking off my shoes before collapsing onto her bed. Sarah's place was small, just a studio with a queen-sized bed and a tiny couch that looked like it'd break under Lucas's weight. We worked out a sleeping arrangement. Sarah would sleep in the middle, facing one way, while Lucas and I slept on either side, facing the opposite direction. It was awkward but practical. Her feet were near our heads, and I figured it'd keep things from getting weird. I trusted Lucas. I trusted Sarah. They knew how I felt about boundaries, and I didn't think twice about sharing the bed. I was out cold within minutes. The next morning, I woke up groggy, my head pounding from the hangover. Lucas was already up, sitting on the edge of the bed, looking pale and fidgety. Sarah was in the kitchen, making coffee, acting like everything was normal. We thanked her, grabbed our stuff, and caught a bus home. But as soon as we were alone, Lucas turned to me, his voice shaky. "Emma, I need to tell you something." My stomach dropped. I knew that tone. It was the same one he used when he dented my car last year and tried to explain it. "What?" I asked, bracing myself. He took a deep breath. "Last night, while you were asleep, Sarah touched me. And I touched her back." I froze. The words didn't make sense at first, like he was speaking another language. "What do you mean, touched her?" I asked, my voice sharp. He looked away, his hands twisting in his lap. "I woke up, and she was, touching me. I knew it wasn't you because you were out cold, and anyway, you'd never do that in someone else's bed. I should have stopped it, but I didn't. I pulled her pants down, touched her thighs, her everything. She unzipped my jeans, and she was, jerking me off. I let it happen, Em. I'm so sorry." I felt like the air had been sucked out of the bus. My heart was racing, and my hands were shaking. "You did this while I was right there?" I whispered, my voice breaking. "In the same bed?" He nodded, his eyes glued to the floor. "She tried to, go further. I didn't let her. That's when I woke you up." My mind flashed back to the night. I vaguely remembered Lucas nudging me awake, whispering that he wanted to have some fun. I'd been so tired, so annoyed, that I'd snapped at him to wait until we got home. He'd kept pushing, even after I said no, and I thought he was just being a horny idiot. Now it hit me. While he was talking to me, Sarah was still touching him. My best friend. My boyfriend. Right next to me, like I didn't exist. I was too stunned to cry. "Why?" I asked. "Why would you do this to me?" He fumbled for an explanation. I don't know, Em. We'd done it before, the three of us, and I thought maybe you'd be okay with it. I thought I was making up for last time, when you felt left out. I messed up. I'm so sorry." I laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. "Making up for it? Lucas, we agreed no more threesomes. I told you I hated it. I was asleep. You didn't even ask me." He didn't have an answer. He just kept apologizing, saying he didn't go all the way with her, as if that made it better. I didn't know what to believe. Was he lying about stopping her? Did it even matter? The betrayal was already done. When we got home, I called Sarah. I needed to hear her side. She answered, her voice cheerful, like nothing had happened. "Hey, Em. You guys get home okay?" "Cut the crap, Sarah," I said, my voice shaking. "Lucas told me what you did." There was a long pause. Then she sighed, like I was overreacting. "Okay, yeah, it happened. But it wasn't a big deal, Emma. We were drunk, and it just happened. You guys did it with me before, so I thought it was fine." I couldn't believe her. "Fine? I was asleep, Sarah. You both knew I didn't want that again. How could you do this to me?" She got defensive. "Look, Lucas was into it. He didn't stop me. If you're mad, talk to him. Don't put this all on me." I hung up, my hands trembling. My best friend and my boyfriend had betrayed me in the worst way, and neither of them seemed to think it was a big deal. I felt like I was losing my mind. Was I wrong to be this angry? I'd consented to a threesome once, months ago, but that didn't mean they had a free pass to do whatever they wanted. I'd been clear about my boundaries. I'd trusted them both, and they'd thrown it back in my face. Over the next few days, I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I pictured them together, their hands on each other, whispering so they wouldn't wake me. Lucas kept texting, begging me to forgive him, saying he'd do anything to make it right. Sarah sent a half-hearted apology text, but it felt like she was just covering her ass. I didn't respond to either of them. I thought about what Lucas said about making up for the last threesome. It made me sick. He wasn't thinking about me, he was thinking about himself, about what he wanted. And Sarah? She'd always been a little too flirty with Lucas, but I'd brushed it off because I trusted her. Now I wondered how long this had been brewing, if they'd been waiting for a chance to cross that line again. I started replaying our relationship in my head. Lucas had always been sweet, supportive, the kind of guy who'd drop everything to help me. But there were little things, times he'd push my boundaries, like when he kept asking for sex that night after I said no. And Sarah, she'd always had a way of making me feel like I was competing for her attention. Had I been blind to who they really were? A week later, I made my decision. I met Lucas at a coffee shop, my heart heavy but resolute. He looked like he hadn't slept either, his eyes red and his hands fidgety. Please. He started, but I cut him off. I'm done, Lucas, I said, my voice steady. You broke my trust. You disrespected me in a way I can't forgive. And the fact that you thought it was okay because of something we did months ago. That shows me you don't get it. You don't get me. He tried to argue, to say he'd change, but I was done listening. I walked away, feeling a strange mix of pain and relief. Breaking up with him hurt, but staying with someone who could betray me like that would hurt more. As for Sarah, I cut her out too. I didn't need a friend who'd stab me in the back and call it no big deal. I blocked her number, deleted her from my life, and started focusing on myself. It wasn't easy. Losing two people I cared about left a hole in my heart. But it also taught me something. Trust is fragile, and not everyone deserves it. The weeks that followed were rough. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, my chest tight, replaying that night over and over. I'd wonder if I could have done something differently, maybe if I hadn't passed out, maybe if I'd insisted on sleeping on the couch. But deep down, I knew it wasn't my fault. They made their choices, and I had to live with the consequences. I threw myself into my routine to cope. I was studying graphic design at a local college, and I started spending more time in the studio, losing myself in projects. My professors noticed a change. My work got sharper, more emotional. One of them, Professor Hayes, pulled me aside after class one day. Emma, your latest piece, it's raw. There's pain in it, but also strength. Keep going. Her words stuck with me. Maybe this hurt could fuel something good. I also started journaling. At first, it was just a way to get the anger out, but it turned into something more. I wrote about Lucas, Sarah, the betrayal, but also about myself, what I wanted, who I wanted to be. I realized I'd been so caught up in my relationship with Lucas that I'd lost sight of my own goals. I'd always wanted to travel, to see the world, but I'd put it off because Lucas wasn't into it. Now, with no one holding me back, I started researching study abroad programs. Maybe a change of scenery would help me heal. About a month after the breakup, I ran into Nate, Sarah's friend from that night, at a campus coffee shop. I hadn't seen him since the bar, and I wasn't sure how to feel. He waved me over, looking a little nervous. Hey, Emma. Can we talk? I hesitated but nodded. We sat down, and he got straight to the point. I heard what happened with Sarah and Lucas. I just want you to know I had no idea. Sarah told me later and I'm sorry. That was messed up. I was surprised. I hadn't expected him to bring it up. Thanks, I said, unsure what else to say. He shifted in his seat. Look, I don't know if this helps, but Sarah's been acting weird ever since. I think she feels guilty, even if she won't admit it. And Lucas, he's been a mess from what I hear. I didn't care about Lucas being a mess, and Sarah's guilt, if she even felt any, didn't change what she did. But talking to Nate was oddly comforting. He wasn't involved, but he understood how betrayed I felt. We ended up chatting for a while, mostly about school and music, and it was the first time in weeks I'd felt normal. Before we parted ways, he scribbled his number on a napkin. If you ever want to grab coffee or just talk, hit me up. I didn't call him right away, but I kept the napkin. Something about that conversation stayed with me. It wasn't about Nate. It was about realizing there were still people out there who could be kind, who didn't make me feel like I had to second-guess everything. As the months passed, I started rebuilding my life. I applied for a summer study program in Florence, Italy, and to my shock I got in. The idea of spending 3 months surrounded by art, history, and a new culture felt like the fresh start I needed. I also started hanging out with new people, classmates, mostly, who shared my passion for design. They didn't know about Lucas or Sarah, and I liked that. It meant I could be myself without the baggage. But the past has a way of creeping back in. One night, I got a text from an unknown number. It was Sarah. She'd gotten a new phone, probably because I'd blocked her old one. Emma, can we talk? I know I messed up. I miss you. I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to hear her out, to see if she changed. But another part, the stronger part, knew I didn't owe her anything. She'd had her chance to be a friend, and she'd thrown it away. I deleted the text and blocked the number. It felt good, like I was finally closing that chapter. Lucas was harder to shake. He kept reaching out, leaving voicemails I didn't listen to, sending emails I marked as spam. One day, he showed up at my apartment, looking like he hadn't slept in weeks. Emma, please, he said, his voice cracking. I know I screwed up. I'll do anything to fix this. I stood in the doorway, my arms crossed. Lucas, there's nothing to fix. You made a choice. You didn't just break my trust, you broke me. I'm done. He started to cry, but I didn't budge. I'd spent too many nights crying over him, over what we'd lost. I deserved to move on. I closed the door and leaned against it, my heart racing but my resolve firm. That was the last time I saw him. By the time I boarded the plane to Florence, I felt lighter than I had in months. The betrayal still stung, but it didn't define me anymore. In Italy, I threw myself into my studies, sketching Renaissance architecture, painting in sunlit studios, and making friends from all over the world. One night, sitting on a balcony overlooking the Arno River, I realized I was happy. Not the fleeting happiness of a good night out, but the deep, quiet kind that comes from knowing you're exactly where you're meant to be. Looking back, that night with Lucas and Sarah was a turning point. It shattered my trust, but it also forced me to rebuild myself stronger. I learned that love, whether it's romantic or platonic, means respect, and anyone who doesn't respect my boundaries doesn't deserve a place in my life. I learned to listen to my gut, to value my own voice, and to never settle for less than I deserve. I don't know what Lucas and Sarah are doing now, and I don't care. I'm not the girl who fell asleep in that bed, unaware of the betrayal happening inches away. I'm Emma, the artist, the traveler, the woman who chose herself. And that's a story worth telling. The months in Florence were a revelation. Every morning, I'd wake up to the sound of church bells echoing through the narrow cobblestone streets. My apartment, a tiny flat above a bakery, smelled of fresh bread and espresso. I'd sit by the window, sketching the rooftops, letting the city's beauty seep into my bones. My classmates were a mix of dreamers and doers, painters from Brazil, sculptors from Japan, designers from South Africa. We'd spend hours debating art, sipping wine in cramped trattorias, and wandering the Uffizi Gallery, arguing over Botticelli's brushstrokes. But it wasn't just the art that changed me. It was the distance from everything I'd known. In Florence, TBC wasn't just a city, it was a mirror, reflecting back the parts of myself I'd buried under heartbreak and self-doubt. I started to see Emma, not as Lucas's girlfriend or Sarah's sidekick, but as a woman with her own dreams, her own fire. One afternoon, I met an older woman named Clara at a street market. She was selling hand-painted ceramics, her hands weathered but steady. We got to talking, and when I told her about my studies, her eyes lit up. Art is not just what you make, she said, her English thick with an Italian accent. It's how you live. You paint with your heart, yes? Her words hit me hard. I'd been painting, sketching, designing, but had I been living with my heart? Or had I been holding back, afraid of being hurt again? Clara became a friend, someone I'd visit every weekend. She'd tell me stories of her youth. Loves lost, risks taken, dreams chased. You are young, she'd say, wagging a finger. But you are not fragile. Break, yes. But you mend stronger. Her words stayed with me, a reminder that my scars weren't weaknesses. They were proof I'd survived. Back at school, I started taking risks with my work. I designed a series of posters inspired by betrayal, using bold reds and jagged lines to capture the rawness of heartbreak. My professors were impressed, and one of them submitted my work to a local gallery. To my shock, they accepted it. The night of the exhibition, I stood in a room full of strangers, watching them study my art, my pain, my strength. A woman bought one of my pieces, saying it reminded her of a time she'd been betrayed. But you made it beautiful, she said. I cried in the bathroom afterward, not out of sadness, but because I had turned my hurt into something that mattered. Florence wasn't all work, though. My new friends dragged me to festivals, where we danced under strings of fairy lights, and to hidden bars, where we sang off-key to Italian pop songs. I even tried dating again, though cautiously. There was a guy named Mateo, a photographer with a crooked smile and a habit of quoting poetry. We never got serious, but he reminded me that my heart could still race, that I could still feel butterflies without fear of crashing. As my program neared its end, I faced a choice: stay in Florence or return home. Part of me wanted to stay, to keep living this vibrant, untethered life. But another part knew I had unfinished business back home, not with Lucas or Sarah, but with myself. I wanted to face the place where I'd been broken and prove I was whole again. When I landed back in the States, everything felt different. The city, once so familiar, seemed smaller, less daunting. I moved into a new apartment, a cozy studio with big windows and enough space for an easel. I started freelancing as a graphic designer, taking on clients who valued my vision. My work was bolder now, infused with the confidence I'd found in Florence. One day, I got an email from Nate, the guy from the bar that night. He'd seen my art online and wanted to congratulate me. We met for coffee, and it was easy, like catching up with an old friend. He told me Sarah had moved away, and Lucas was still struggling to move on. I didn't feel anger or sadness, just indifference. They were part of my past, not my future. Nate and I stayed in touch, and over time, our coffee chats turned into dinners, then dates. I was hesitant, but he was patient, never pushing me to be anything but myself. We're not together, in the official sense, but we're something, two people figuring it out, taking it slow. And that's enough for now. As I write this, I'm sitting in my apartment, a canvas propped up nearby. It's a new piece, inspired by Florence's sunsets, all fiery pinks and purples. It's not finished yet, but that's okay. Neither am I. What happened that night with Lucas and Sarah broke me, but it also set me free. It showed me who I am when the people I love let me down. And it taught me that I'm stronger than I ever knew. I don't know what the future holds, but I'm not afraid of it. I've got my art, my dreams, and a heart that's still beating, still open. I'm Emma, and this is my story, not just of betrayal, but of becoming. And I'm just getting started.